So my first memory of cooking would have been, most likely I would have been about probably say 4 years old, and I can remember standing on a little stool next to mum, and being brought up in an Italian family, mum was always making fresh pasta, and I was always so intrigued by that. And I used to love watching her using the pasta machine. So I remember that I used to always drag up the little stool that my dad had made for me, so I could stand up at the bench next to her and help her make the pasta, and my job was to wind the pasta machine. So the inspiration for cooking would have most definitely have been just me being a part of an Italian culture. So all of our family, friends, and I've got vivid memories of us as a family going to visit many Italian families, and there was always big congregations and gatherings, and all of those gatherings were always centered around food. So there'd be many weekends spent making passata, which is the tomato sauce with fresh tomatoes, and that would take a whole weekend with many families, and that was one of the greatest things I used to love about food and cooking. So with all of these memories of having food and cooking a part of my life and a strong part of our Italian culture, this brought with me many strong values as I grew up and became an adult myself, and also a mum, because I wanted to have my family and the children to also experience such great values that food and cooking would bring to their lives. So food's the centre of everyone's lives, and it's something that can bring people together no matter what.
So one of the most successful things about my video portrait, I would say, is being able to include the B-roll and how that is able to add extra detail to my video without explicitly stating like obvious actions, as well as reflecting what my mum is saying to make the video a bit more engaging and like nice to watch. And it also allowed me to stick to the 2-minute time constraint, since talking about every single thing would not allow me to do that. I would say the least successful thing about my video portrait was trying to source all the photos to use for my B-roll, since we had a house fire a couple of years ago and lost a lot of our photos, especially the ones of my mum when she was young, and this made it quite tricky to have like a wide selection to use for B-roll. And another problematic aspect I found with it was scanning in the photos to be able to put into the portrait. A lot of them had heat damage, and the colour on the film had like smudged, or the edges were just burnt, so editing that out was quite tough. And for some of the photos I couldn't even use them because they were just too hard to edit, so that was definitely a challenge. But I'm just grateful I could save a decent amount of photos which reflects my mum and her childhood well. One key discovery I made in producing the video portraits was in the reading about directing the documentary by Michael Rebgar. He highlighted here the importance of rehearsing your questions, which is often a step that I think I've definitely overlooked a lot of the time. But reading this really made me see how much of an impact it can have on the interview, and how it made me more conscious to rehearse and make sure my questions were like okay. And in that reading, he also highlighted how rehearsing and reading your questions aloud can check if they are unambiguous and direct, and they also need to ensure that they're not just a yes or no question, as well as how the question could be interpreted and if it could offend any people and all that. One cool lesson I have learned in the production process is asking open-ended questions, which will allow to have a conversational style and free-flowing nature about the interview, and it allows the interviewee to be more relaxed and less confronted about what they're talking about, which is really important. And this skill can then be transferred to my broader development as a media practitioner, as the interviewee will be feeling comfortable and relaxed, as well as being able to talk about the topic easily and get their point across clearly and effectively.
I also think it's important to have multiple layers to your project. Originally, when I edited just the sitting down interview clips together, watching them all through was quite boring. However, once I added images over the top, as well as B-roll, and added some background music, the video became a lot more engaging and told a much better story, which was more inspiring. And it had stuff that the audience could relate to through getting glimpses of her childhood, which I think is really important in being a media practitioner.